This is Matthew Kratters, Bitcoin University. Today I want to answer the question, does Bitcoin have a use case? Or another way of asking the question, does Bitcoin have any real utility? People are always saying things like Bitcoin is a purely speculative asset or Bitcoin has no use case. So I wanted to make a single video that I could point people to in order to refute this claim. One of the things Bitcoin does, Bitcoin allows people to turn stranded energy into money. So for example, if you have a natural gas well in the middle of nowhere that cannot be profitably connected to a pipeline because it's so remote, or if you have stranded solar energy or wind or geothermal or hydroelectric power, you can bring a Bitcoin mining rig to the location and turn that stranded energy into Bitcoin that can be zapped to an exchange and sold for fiat money or saved as Bitcoin. Methane gas as well. Methane gas is widely considered to be more dangerous than carbon dioxide from a climate change perspective. If you have a landfill that's emitting lots of methane gas, you can burn it, converting it to safer CO2 and water to create electricity that can then be used to power a Bitcoin mining rig, thus making this conversion economically viable and creating the incentives for people to want to convert methane into CO2. You cannot do this with Ethereum or Cardano or XRP or any other cryptocurrency that runs on some form of proof of stake rather than proof of work like Bitcoin does. Here's a AI summary. Bitcoin mining can help reduce methane emissions by using captured methane as an energy source. This process can be done at landfills, farms, and wastewater treatment plants. Landfills use landfill gas to energy systems to capture methane. Farms use anaerobic digestion systems to capture methane from manure. And then you have wastewater treatment plants as well. Also, Bitcoin allows anyone in the world to store economic value, in other words, their savings, in their head using just 12 words. That's amazing when you stop to think about it. This is actually true. You can walk around anywhere in the world with those 12 words and you can reconstitute your Bitcoin. Bitcoin allows anyone in the world to cross a border, storing money in their head in this way. This is great for refugees, for example, who don't want to arrive in their new country completely penniless. Here's an example of a Ukrainian refugee who fled to Poland a couple years ago with $2,000 worth of Bitcoin on a USB drive. He or she could have used just 12 words in their head as well. Bitcoin allows people working in the US to send remittances to their families back home in Latin America without having to pay the high fees that Western Union charges and the unfair conversion rates, currency conversion rates that they always impose. Bitcoin allows their families to avoid the criminals who stand outside Western Union branches in Latin America quite often and extort an additional fee for not cracking their heads open. If you're finding this video helpful so far, I just ask you to help to support this channel's educational mission. Hit the subscribe button. That does really help with the channel's reach and engagement. Leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video, and share this video with a friend or family member. Bitcoin allows people who live in places with hyperinflating currencies like Lebanon, Turkey, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, and the list could go on and on and on. Bitcoin allows these people to preserve their savings and not get wiped out. That seems like a very good use case to me. Here's Bitcoin denominated in Turkish lira, up 246,000%. Here's Bitcoin denominated in Lebanese pounds. You can see if you converted your local currency to Bitcoin in one of these cases, you were able to preserve your purchasing power even though the local currency was collapsing. Even if you live in a place like the US that has one of the best fiat currencies around, you're still being badly hurt by inflation, as you've probably experienced over the past 4 years. If you move your savings into Bitcoin, it will help to preserve your purchasing power over time. This is the chart of Bitcoin and how it looks versus the dollar, and it is more than kept up with inflation. Preserving the purchasing power of your savings is good for people who would like to not have to work right up until the day that they drop dead. It's very important to save for retirement this way, and you have to save in a good currency or a good asset. Otherwise, your purchasing power ends up dissipating. Bitcoin is good for people who would like to escape the rat race of paying rent and groceries while working 2 jobs, because you simply cannot save effectively and escape the rat race using fiat money because it is a melting ice cube and it doesn't hold its value well enough. Bitcoin allows human rights activists to send and receive money that would otherwise be frozen by the autocratic regimes that they're fighting against. Human rights activists have used Bitcoin to protect their rights and freedoms in countries where authoritarian regimes restrict financial access. Examples of activists using Bitcoin: Win Coco Ong and Ludmila Kozlovska. And these are some examples that Alex Gladstein has talked about in his work. I'll link to one of his essays here, which is quite good, How to Dictator Proof your money and how you can use Bitcoin to help fight authoritarian regimes. Bitcoin also allows you to send money to anyone in the world that you want to without needing to ask permission from a banker or a politician or some other third party. And if the recipient of this money is unbanked or has been debanked for political reasons, they simply need to download a mobile wallet on their phone in order to receive the money. Technically, they could even roll some dice and derive some Bitcoin addresses. They don't even need the internet, for example, to do this, which is an amazing thing. You can send this money to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If it's an emergency, even on weekends, on holidays, on bank holidays, and in the middle of the night as well. Bitcoin allows you to buy things over the internet or in person that might be forbidden in your country, or maybe you don't even have a bank account. So Bitcoin would allow you to purchase goods and services. That, of course, could be drugs, but it could also be antibiotics, Tylenol, banned books, anything that's not available in your jurisdiction. Bitcoin mining can help to fund conservation efforts in remote locations. There was this great example of how Bitcoin mining was being used to fund conservation efforts in Virunga National Park in the DRC in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This was a great example of something that was helping to save endangered animals, creating local jobs, incentivizing the build out of energy infrastructure, and also monetizing stranded energy. So I'll put a link to that in the description notes below. Bitcoin mining can help to incentivize bringing electricity to remote locations. This is what we were saying when we said here that it incentivizes energy infrastructure build out, because these Bitcoin mining rigs can be the first users of the grid. And then as you build hospitals, as you build houses, as more people come onto the grid, then the Bitcoin mining rigs can scale down their activity. Here's a great article I'll link to about the African village mining Bitcoin, but this is Bondo in Malawi near the border with Mozambique. It sits in the foothills of Mount Mulanje, where the residents rely on their feet for transport. And then finally, electricity has arrived in Bondo. 3 turbines were installed in a micro hydro scheme exploiting the fertile region's rainfall, and the impact has been life-changing for the 1,800 homes so far connected to a mini grid. Children could study after dark, so now have a better chance of passing the exams for secondary school rather than having to leave at age 12, age 11. Drugs and food can be stored in fridges, so villagers do not have to make the 12-mile trek to the hospital, etc., etc. And one of the great companies behind this is Gridless, which is a Jack Dorsey company. Gridless works with renewable, rural, mini-grid energy generators to monetize the full capacity of their output as a buyer of last resort, as well as serving as an anchor tenant for new energy generation creation. So there are many, many use cases for Bitcoin. People who say it doesn't have a use case really haven't been paying attention. Bitcoin is ethical money, it's open money, it's permissionless money, and it's available to anyone in the world with a smartphone. That means Bitcoin is freedom money for about 8 billion people. That's about 8 billion possible use cases for Bitcoin, many of which have yet to be discovered and publicized. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.